What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gamescast, now episode 90, topic 2. I'm Alex. This is our conversational gaming show, a show that airs every other week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, where I talk about all things gaming. Now, in this topic, I want to talk about Days Gone's DLC, the story DLC, like the main DLC. And this was announced several months ago, before the game came out even. I think it was around February. And I made a video and I talked about, I kind of predicted what the DLC could be. I said, could it be a prequel stuff? Now the game's been out and people have beaten it. A lot of people I think love this game. I think some people were a little bit disappointed with it, but it's kind of been split. There's some split people's opinions on this game, but I think we're getting closer and closer, and now that we're just in the dead of summer, I think we're getting closer to a DLC, the main DLC. Now, they've been adding stuff to this game ever since the game came out. They're doing challenges, they've added extra difficulties. They've been doing a lot of things to have people continue to go back to this game, and this game is selling very, very well. This game, I think, definitely met expectations. I do 100% believe we're getting a Days Gone 2, and that's awesome because while I think this game is a slightly above average game, I see a game with so much potential for a sequel that could make it really one of the best open world games, a game of the year, an easy game of the year contender. But until then, we have what they could be showing us, and this is really cool because not only is this DLC, I think, have the potential to bring people back to Days Gone, bring in more people to Days Gone, but also kind of give us a look as to where they are now, because you have to think that at least for the main part up until when this game came out, they weren't really focused on the DLC. They were focused on the base game. I think this could very well be kind of like an Uncharted Lost Legacy or even Kingdom Hearts Remind, where this takes quite a bit of time and they don't start working on it even until either right before this game shipped or just when the game shipped. So they could only have been working on this DLC for a couple months at this point, and I do believe that. I think they've only been working on this DLC for 3-4 months at the absolute max. And that makes it tough, especially because you obviously want to give your best if you're a game developer, right? You want to put in the most work you can, deliver the best product, and put the most stuff in there. And if you're going to do a story DLC, which we know, again, they are doing that, the opportunities are endless. There's a lot of stuff they could do. They could take it in a lot of different directions. We could maybe still play as Deacon. Maybe they could even make us play as a different character. I mean, there's a lot they could do with this game. And again, it shows us, hopefully, because right after this is done, I assume they're going to start working on a Days Gone 2. If not, they've already kind of talked about it. I'm sure they've probably already had meetings and discussions about what a Days Gone 2 would be. So obviously, and at the absolute worst, they're still taking everything they learned about Days Gone and all of the feedback and criticism and all that stuff that they got from people since this game's been out. They got all that, right? And now they're working on this DLC. So I think the DLC has a lot of potential to be really, really awesome because they can kind of take in mind what everybody's talked about with Days Gone and improve upon it for the DLC, and then improve upon it even more for a full-blown sequel. Now, when could this come out? Well, it's tough. It's tough because you don't really know how big it's going to be. You don't know if this DLC is going to be a massive, massive thing or if it's going to be a 1 to 2 hour thing. It's tricky. The Lost Legacy, and we can only, again, go back kind of to past examples as to when these things could come out. Lost Legacy came out in August, the year after Uncharted 4 came out. So it took them quite a while. It took them over a full year, like a year and 3 months to make this. The Kingdom Hearts DLC, Kingdom Hearts came out in January, and while we're getting those challenges and we're getting like the character selects and you could do the boss battles with different characters, yes, that's coming out in the fall, but the full-blown story DLC that they had talked about and Nomura talked about when that game came out, it really doesn't seem like that's going to come out until probably January at the earliest, so easily a full year after Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. So, you're looking at about a year after the game comes out, but the question is Days Gone going to follow that? And it's tough. I honestly don't know. I feel like the hope, especially Sony's hope, would be to want to get something out there in the fall, and I feel like that's probably way, way, way too early to do it, to want to get it out like September, October. But you look at the fall and you look at, what you're competing against. I mean, really, all three exclusive studios don't have all that much. Now, they each kind of have their own unique thing, but really, there's not much to the fall in terms of exclusives. It's a lot of third-party stuff. It's, think about what the fall is. It's Borderlands, it's Call of Duty, it's Ghost Recon, and then once you get into November, yeah, you do have your Death Stranding from Sony. You do have your Gears 5 from Microsoft in September. So they both do have that game, right? They both do have that exclusive. Nintendo really kind of doesn't have much. They've focused a lot, and I do mean a lot, on the summer, and then when it comes to the fall, I mean, they have Luigi's Mansion. I assume that is that game that they want, and they also have Pokemon, obviously. So they have two, actually. Then you can kind of consider that the winner, because I think Pokemon is just as big, if not bigger, than Gears and Death Stranding. So you got that, and then if you add Luigi's Mansion to it, so everybody kind of has their own thing. But when you're a first-party studio, or when you're the publisher, when you're Sony, you're probably looking to get ahead as much as you can and whatever opportunity you can. And I guess you could look to the full release or full launch of Dreams. Dreams has been in that kind of whatever they're calling it, that alpha state where you can buy the game early, play it, and then I do like that. I actually really do like that idea. I know a lot of people are really, really happy with how Dreams is. That's fantastic. That's awesome. Hopefully the full launch of that game can be in the fall to kind of give Sony something else in the fall besides Death Stranding. I'm not saying Death Stranding is going to flop. I think Death Stranding is going to be a massive game and a very well-received game critically and commercially, but I think ultimately you probably just want more. And I think if you tried to fit the Days Gone DLC in the fall, that would be the best case scenario. Now, if you go to the spring of next year, it gets a lot more murky because you really don't know all that many games. I mean, again, it's kind of just third-party games. We do know about Animal Crossing in late March, but besides that, again, it's games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's games like Watch Dogs, it's games like Cyberpunk, it's games like Marvel's Avengers. So there's all these third-party games, and yes, we don't know about maybe a game like Skull and Bones. Maybe that comes out next spring, and that's a Ubisoft game. We don't know about The Last of Us Part 2, which really seems to be, in terms of when I'm recording this, now I don't know if, since then something big has happened, but rumor has it it's February, so that would be pretty good. And then I think if you have The Last of Us Part 2 in February, it gives Days Gone's DLC more time. I feel like you can have Days Gone's DLC come out in March or April, and maybe, literally a year after Days Gone comes out, and then now you look at the spring for Sony, and you got The Last of Us. 2 months later, you have a really big kind of content for Days Gone that's basically like a Days Gone 1.5, and then, you try and fit Ghost of Tsushima in there somewhere, and then you get into the next generation of consoles. So maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they've told Sony, Ben, they say, hey, look, we want you to deliver a really, really big DLC. Take your time. You take a year if you have to. Some of you work on this, but here's the thing. Whenever you have something like this, it can't take away from the next thing. I think, when in terms of when they were making the Lost Legacy Uncharted, they had split. They had split studios, and they were still, Neil Druckmann's team was working on The Last of Us Part 2. A new group, that did work on Uncharted 4, but they kind of split off. They worked on The Lost Legacy. So yeah, it took them a little over a year, but it wasn't the full team, and it was just part of the team that worked on Uncharted 4. You have to do that. And I really pray to God that the team working on this Kingdom Hearts Remind thing, they aren't the full team, and that most of them are thinking about what comes next. Kingdom Hearts 4, another spin-off, whatever, but I really hope that that's what they're doing, because you can't dedicate your entire team another year to making the DLC when you need to get your next game out. Honestly, I feel like Sony Santa Monica was in that same boat, and we've heard that through rumors and even them confirming it, that they wanted to do DLC for God of War, but it would be too expansive, it would be too big. There you go. There you have it. They wanted to do DLC, but they were probably like, well, look, and this is the problem that I think I like these. I like it when games do these story-based DLCs, but this is the negative. If you're going to do it, and you're going to take that much time, if you're going to take about a year or a year and a half to do it, and it's going to be very high quality, and maybe it even kind of expands it and makes it better. You could argue there were parts of Lost Legacy that were better than Uncharted 4. Maybe it looked a little bit better at certain parts. So, I mean, you have all these things that even it looked better and felt better, and you took a year and a half to do it. Well, if you're going to have your whole team or most of your team doing it, that definitely takes away from your next project. That's the weakness. I don't want Days Gone to be making this story DLC if it's going to take a year and a half, and then that slows down development of Days Gone 2 by a year year and a half. I think we should get a Days Gone 2 in 2 to 3 years, absolutely max 3 years. So, and because I want Days Gone 2 for the PS5, I want it within the first couple of years. If this is going to push it back another year and we're not going to see a Days Gone 2 for like 4 years because they were working on this, it's not worth it. Same thing for all these games. If this pushes Kingdom Hearts 4 back by a year because of this DLC, I don't want it. Lost Legacy, we know what it did. You know, it was, again, a split-off studio, and most of the team was working on The Last of Us Part 2, so it didn't really affect them. I'm sure maybe it did slow things down, and I'm sure some people that were working on The Lost Legacy then jumped back into The Last of Us Part 2, but we also, again, have rumors that they're hiring for another, or they're doing another game kind of in the background. So Naughty Dog's always kind of working at 2 games at one time. I hope that Days Gone's doing the same thing. So in terms of predictions, I think Sony, I think they're in a nice spot in a way, because I think they could use the DLC in the fall, and they could want it in the fall, and I would personally want it in the fall. But if that's not enough time, if Sony Ben needs more time to do it, then you don't need it, and you can kind of, because you have Death Stranding and that can carry your fall anyway, then you can kind of push it, and then you'll have The Last of Us hopefully in February, and then Days Gone's DLC can come out in March or April, giving them about a year. So those are my 2 predictions. Either the fall, but more than likely I feel like March or April of next year, about a full year after Days Gone's been out. I feel like that's when we'll get the DLC. So guys, what do you think? When do you think Days Gone's DLC is going to come out? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And again, these Gamescast topics go up every other week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Saturday there will be a brand new topic, and I hope to see you guys there.